What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Alarm TV. I'm your host, Howard Bender, and this is Table That Discussion. For those of you new to the game here, well, it's very simple. I pose a number of topics to discuss here to my esteemed Fantasy Alarm panel of analysts. And, well, whoever's got something good to say, they get points for that. If they got something bad to say, they'll lose points. If they say something really stupid, well, I just put the entire freeze over them, and then they get to sit out the rest of the way. Your goal is to get as close to 5 alarm fires as you possibly can here, and then you get the privilege of leading the next topic of discussion there. Let me introduce my panelists today, and I've asked them all to just share a little slice of them with some of you guys out there, based on learning if they were a baseball player or professional wrestler or anybody else in the public eye, what their walk-up, their entrance music would be. I'm going to start off here. First off, Steve Pimental, chief of the WNBA content over at fantasyalarm.com. He also does a mess of other things over there as well. Steve, what's going on, man? Welcome in. Walk-up music. What should your entrance music be?
Howard, my entrance music would be I Like It by Cardi B. That song's my jam. I don't understand why you're laughing.
Yeah, it's a very Jim Bowden-like response, actually. So I to be perfectly honest, I don't know the song, and based on everybody else's reaction, it's a little. Can you hum a few bars for me, please?
I would sing it for you, but it's not a PG-13 song.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then the foul-mouthed Steve Pimental is going to come to the plate with a whole bunch of swearing and not keeping it kid-friendly. Matt Sells, champion of all things NASCAR, master of the Excel spreadsheet. You, my friend, what do you got? What if you're stepping up to the plate, my boy, what do you got going on there?
I'm going with Remember the Name by Fort Minor.
Yeah, that's losing something on me. Can you play a little for me?
People would stop watching if I tried.
Okay, well, there you go. There you go. Attach all of these songs somehow and just kind of figure out what it is. Doesn't anybody know anything from like before 1990? Please, James Grande, welcome in. Good to see you. Talk to me, buddy. What do you got? What's your walk-up music?
So considering I'd be a bat flipper, Howard, and I know you'd appreciate that very much, I would love to have Cry Me a River by Justin Timberlake as my walk-up song. So when I go yard and I'm staring at you, cry me a river, yeah, cry me a river.
Grande automatically gets one fire right now just for falling into the falsetto like that. Come on. I'll give it to you. Mike Alexander, the Roto Juan, my friend, my buddy, my Jedi here. Tell me you got something good walking up to the plate.
Yeah, my go-to pump-up music is Wolf Mother, probably Woman. It's heavy bass lines, some guitar licks that'll get you going. So that's my kind of jam for a walkout song.
All right, listen, I can get behind that. I can dig it. Sounds all so good. I would tell you guys mine, but I don't think any of you even listen to Fish, so I would think I'd just be wasting my time. For those of you out there who do listen to Fish, well, I don't know why you're listening to me right now. You should be at the show. Be at the show, summer tour. Let's get down to dirty here. Let's get to business. Let's start talking what's going on. Topic number 1 on the agenda, people, Kevin Durant. Oh, we knew the condition of Kevin Durant coming into the game. We were all concerned about the injury. He played about 12 minutes before he went down with what has been a ruptured Achilles. He went for surgery on Wednesday, so he is done for here. Now that I pose this question, I'm going to turn to James first, since you headed up our NBA content. Talk to me here. KD probably just cost himself a big bundle in the free agent market, or did he? Wrong for him to play or right for him to play?
I mean, it's always one thing to go back and say, what if he didn't play, or what? I mean, we could say the same thing about two of his teammates, and Klay Thompson and Boogie Cousins, who both came back from injuries and they didn't get hurt. So we're not talking about it. I mean, the decision ultimately was made by Kevin Durant, who you just mentioned is obviously has the option to become a free agent, putting his own money and well-being on the line. It was cleared by 2 doctors, a team doctor and a secondary medical staff. So like everything pointed to him playing. There's also been no indication ever in the history of like injuries that a calf injury, which it originally was, had anything to do or any like comparison to an Achilles injury. It's a freak injury. There's been freak injuries throughout sports. It happens. And it just kind of shows the competitor that Kevin Durant is. He wanted to play. They needed him to play. He gave them a spark, whether it was 12 minutes or 35 minutes. I don't necessarily have a problem with him playing. Obviously, the hindsight's one thing. Now, you mentioned the free agent thing. If he's worried about it, he can opt into his deal this year for $31 million. So how much money would he actually lose for a year where he doesn't actually play, or maybe he comes back for the playoffs? He's also one of these just all-world talents that, you know, will still probably get a max deal elsewhere, which is crazy to think about because he could be sitting out for a full year. But he is arguably the best basketball player on the planet. And if that means risking it for 1 year where, you know, now the next year of free agency, you're like, okay, well, we have a healthy Kevin Durant coming back. Come play with us. So I don't have really any problem with him playing at all. I actually applaud him. And you know what? He was cleared medically. So ultimately, if he's cleared medically, I mean, by multiple doctors, then I don't see it. I don't have any problem with it.
Let me go over to Steve Pimentel. Steve, talk to me here. Knicks, Nets, there's lots of talk here. Max contract for KD, no matter what happened, or maybe it did happen to him. Maybe somebody's going to bow out because of this here. Does this hurt KD's value on the market at all?
Well, if he's really as set on going to the Knicks as all the reports have indicated, then I don't really think anything's changed, because he wasn't going to win with the Knicks next year anyway, and their only shot at legitimacy is signing him. I don't think getting Kyrie Irving and Jimmy Butler gets it done for them. I think they need KD to come, even if they have to wait a year. So, and I don't think they're necessarily the only team that still feels that way, that would still throw a max contract out at him, even with him sitting out. But I do think the field has narrowed. You know, a team like the Nets, even a team like the Clippers that are 1 star away and don't necessarily need a superstar. I don't know that they want to wait for him, you know, when you can go out and get, you know, you can sign Jimmy Butler, and the Nets that probably makes the Nets contenders, or Tobias Harris or someone of that caliber. And the most interesting question, I think, is if he opts out, if Durant opts out of his contract, does Golden State still offer him a max contract? Do they want to wait a year when they could use that money and shore up that bench? I mean, the starting 5 is still good enough to win. They just need a couple bench pieces, and maybe that's the direction they go if Durant opts out.
All right, Mike, let me ask you this. In an era where it's the me first player, the paycheck player, does this all of a sudden, if the field is narrowed to the number of teams who are going to be willing to give KD a max deal because of this injury, does this elevate KD to being one of those athletes who everybody should aspire to be, everybody should look up to? He put his team, and the fact that they were down 3-1 in the playoffs, or in the championship, should I say, he put them first and put his second. Or is the $31 million golden parachute kind of absolve us from having to elevate him to being one of the premier athletes who always puts his team first?
Look, it's great that he came back and, you know, put the team first, and then he tried to you know, get as much of the series as he could in. But yes, it's a mistake. He's never going to be the same basketball player. And a ruptured Achilles is one of the worst injuries to come back from in modern sports medicine. The list is, you can count on one hand the number of guys who can successfully come back to anywhere near where they were, and most of them aren't basketball players. He's going to make money still, but he has lost money for sure. He's not going to get the same number of years. He may not be the same player, and that's going to cost him in his next contract. He's cost himself money. I think he wanted to show that the Warriors do need KD to win a championship. He got tons of flack for going to a team that was, coming off of such success and taking the easy route. I think maybe his ego got in the way a little bit there.
Well, all right, let me wrap this up with Matt Sells. Let me ask you here, is this all about the ego here? And could this hurt KD in the end that, all of a sudden if the Warriors lose, did they really lose because KD got hurt? They won by 1 point. It was a last second thing. And again, KD was out only playing 12 minutes there. Or do you see him as being somebody who should be revered, is worthy of the max deal, no matter what the situation is? And if nobody else offers him a max deal and the Warriors choose not to, are they just stupid?
Well, so heading into this series, there was a lot of talk and banter about, is KD really necessary in Golden State? Has his ego been hurt by them winning without him on the floor? And so, yeah, I think his ego got in the way a little bit. I think he decided to try to pull a Willis Reed moment out and will his team to victory, which obviously they did win. I mean, he only played 12 minutes, so I'm not sure how much of an effect he had. But I think also in the back of his mind, he knew he had the $32 million golden parachute that's up to him. It's not up to the team. It's a player option. So, but going back to what Mike said, he's right. The Achilles injury for basketball players is almost a death knell. There have been like 18 guys to suffer torn Achilles. The only guy who's actually had a productive career after doing it was Dominique Wilkins back in 1992. He actually made 2 All-Star games after tearing his Achilles. Kobe Bryant was never the same guy afterwards. Boogie Cousins, his teammate, yeah, he appears to be kind of sort of the same guy, but he's a different kind of player than Durant. He's not going to have nearly the athleticism, nearly the jumping ability, nearly the cutting ability he had before. So I think in the long run, yeah, it probably did cost him money, but the Knicks, knowing the Knicks, they'll still give him the 4 years, $160 million that is the max they can give him, because they don't have a problem eating money.
Okay, well, James, you looked like you had something to say. You're stirring in your seat over there. Could KD be done? Could the Knicks end up making the biggest blunder in sports by handing him that max deal now?
I mean, I don't think KD's done at all. I mean, yes, we're talking about an Achilles, and obviously it's a very sensitive area of the body. But like Mike said, we're in modern medicine. Matt referenced something from 1992. He also referenced Kobe Bryant, who was 35 or 36 at the time, already on 20 years down of his NBA career. So I don't think that's obvious, the same comparison. And Kobe did come back, and obviously I'm not going to say he was a great player afterwards, but he was still a guy who got 25 a night. And you know what? That was always what he was on a bad Lakers team. If you're telling me that Kevin Durant, maybe after a year, can't come back to, what he's a 30-point scorer now, if he's a 27-point scorer, he's a 7-foot guard who can dribble as well as anybody in the NBA. I mean, he's look at Dirk Nowitzki, who had none of his skills, is 7 foot, he's immobile. Imagine Kevin Durant became Dirk Nowitzki 2.0. Then what? Dirk Nowitzki was an NBA champion considerably with one of the best NBA championship runs in the history of basketball. So to say Kevin Durant is done at the age of 30 because of an Achilles, yeah, sure. And you just mentioned Boogie Cousins, very limited in what he can do with 4 superstars around him, returning from an Achilles. So I don't think those situations are necessarily comparable. And especially the magnitude and the elite status that Kevin Durant is. And if anybody can change their game to cater to this injury, it's definitely Kevin Durant, because we've already seen Dirk Nowitzki-esque moves out of him in the post.
Sells, you had something to add there.
Yeah, Rudy Gay was 30 years old when he tore his Achilles. How good is he right now?
Are they the same? Is Rudy Gay the same player as Kevin Durant?
Whoa.
No, it's not. But he tore it at 30 years old, same age as Durant. Did it 2 years ago, not from 1992, and he's not anywhere close to what he is.
He is a very formidable.
I'm saying Durant will have to change his game, and if he's half the guy or 3/4 of the guy the Knicks are paying for, He's not worth $40 million a year. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's wrap this up here. Show of hands, guys. KD, thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think? All right, we're split here on the panel. Very, very nice. We're going to table this discussion, gentlemen. I'm going to award some fire alarms here. Matt Sell's spitting flames right now. I'm going to give him 3 off of that discussion there. Coming back at my man Grande, who's got 2 now. 1 for the falsetto voice and 1 for the moderately intelligent basketball speak there. Steve Pimentel, you got 2 yourself. Mike, I don't know, man. I'm just going to throw you 1 fire there. I mean, it was some good talk. I like it, but I think you got more in you. So I'll tell you what. Let's move on here. Let's move over to a little fantasy baseball. And let's see. Most underrated fantasy baseball player. Let's hear what you guys have to say. Sel, since you're in the lead, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, my pick would be Mike Moustakas. Heading into this season, he had already had multiple 30 home run seasons. People knew he was going to be a multi-positional guy, and yet in snake and auction drafts alike, he was not taken better than 14th in any of the 2 positions or any of the 2 formats in the draft. So he's not being taken as a starting second baseman or third baseman heading into the season, yet he had multiple 30 home run, 70 run, 80 RBI, 280 seasons already in the bank, and now he's got 2/3 of his stat line from last year, and it's just the beginning of June. Right. So yeah, I think it's kind of hard to argue against Mike Moustakas.
He's done it with 2 fractured fingers too. Refuses to go on the IL for that. I like that. That's a nice one. Mike Alexander, most underrated fantasy baseball player.
For me, it's Trevor Story. You got a guy who can go 40-20. And he's not taken in the first round. That's insanity to me. You know, Jose Ramirez was bumped up to number 3 overall because he could go 40-20. So, you know, given that Trevor Story can do that, his home ballpark is Coors Field. His average is up the past 2 seasons. He was 291 last year. Right now he's in the 280s. He gives you everything you need from a fantasy baseball roto perspective. And to take him in the middle of the second round is just disrespectful.
Disrespectful to take a Rocky shortstop who's only done it once, but okay, all right. James Grande, redeem yourself, my friend. What do you got?
I mean, I don't know if I have to redeem myself. I thought I had pretty good arguments in the last.
Oh, see, look at that. You want me to take a fire away just for arguing?
I'm just fired up. I'm fired up for the NBA, Howard. That's all. So I'm gonna go with the Nationals' third baseman in Anthony Rendon, and I mean, each year there is nicks and nags, and he seems to miss a couple games, but every year that he has played 130 games, he's had 20 home runs, 80 runs scored, 85 RBIs, and in back-to-back years we're hitting for over 300. Right now, his current ranks across Major League Baseball with an IL trip: 7th in average, 6th in runs, 20th in home runs, 11th in RBIs, 3rd in OPS. This was in 2 auction drafts. I looked through my auction draft earlier this year, and I asked John and Pemba for his. $15 he went in both of our drafts on a $260 budget. That is absolutely insane. And we could just talk about another guy in his position that Mike just mentioned, Jose Ramirez, who we had in 45. I mean, he was going for 30 plus in every single draft. So I think Anthony Rendon is currently the most underrated player in fantasy baseball.
Steve Pimentel, what do you got? Most underrated player?
Well, you guys have been mentioning players who were underrated on draft day, but someone who's underrated right now as we speak is Yani Chirinos. I don't understand how he isn't owned in every single league. I mean, just the fact that he's not a starter, that he's only has 6 starts instead of 13, that somehow makes him less valuable. But I mean, if you look at it, if anything, the fact that Tampa Bay's using an opener just makes Chirinos that much more valuable because he doesn't necessarily have to go as deep into games to be eligible to pick up a win. And his numbers are, the strikeouts aren't fantastic, but he doesn't walk anyone. And a 4.23 strikeout to walk rate is more than good enough. He's a little bit harder to own because you have to pay attention to when he's gonna get used because he doesn't have that probable starter symbol next to his name when you set your lineup, but it's totally worth it. Chirinos should be 100% owned, should be getting more buzz, just having a great under the radar season, probably because no one pays attention to the Tampa Bay Rays. That obviously works against him.
Probably not drafted in most 12-team leagues either. I like that call. I like that call very much so. You know what? I'm going to be nice here and democratic. I'm going to give you all an extra fire for that one there. It was nice. Although, Mike, going with the Coors Field guy here, come on.
Stats are stats, Howard. It doesn't matter how thin
second rounder, mid-second rounder who gets half his game in Coors. Now, had you turned around and said Eduardo Escobar, I probably would have given you 5 fires right then and there.
He was my backup in case somebody stole Moustakas.
All right, well, nobody likes a kiss ass there, man. Come on. Seriously, now that, boom. You know what? You're frozen. Matt Sells is frozen for the time being right now. He ends up losing one of his fires for that. He's probably stuck on 3 once I unfreeze him. Pimental gets one. He's up to 3. Grande and Mike, you're each sitting at 2 right now. Time to get some work done here. Let me unfreeze my man, Matt Sells. Welcome back to the table, Matt. Did you have anything else to add? Yeah, I didn't think so. All right, see, onwards and upwards, everybody. Sticking with the fantasy baseball world here, I'm going to go to Mike Alexander first. Mike, talk to me. Justin Upton, turf toe, been out the entire season right now. Traditionally a 30 home run bat who can steal you anywhere from 8 to 15 stolen bases. Alongside that, with a decent average somewhere in like the 270 range. We'll just kind of lay it down there and see what happens. But when Justin Upton comes back, game changer for fantasy owners or just another guy?
Justin Upton is fool's gold to me, Howard. You ask a person who's previously rostered Justin Upton if they were happy that they rostered him. Typically, the answer is no. He's very streaky. He's now going to be working with only half a season. So if you get that cold second half without, the hot first half, you've got a really bad player on your hands. His stats always seem great or good. They seem like he should be around 50th overall in redraft, but nobody ever really wants to draft Justin Upton. There's a reason for that. He doesn't give you consistent production. And, if you're getting him for free, okay, you can stash him. But if you have to bid on him, if you're trading for him, anything like that, I'll pass on Justin Upton.
All right. Can you tell me the geological name for fool's gold?
Something
Can anybody?
Pyrite.
Oh, Matt Sells, you get to go next. And look at that. I'm just going to give you a fire for that one there. Look at that. My geological friend. What can I say? Justin Upton, game changer here. Potential MVP candidate because he's going to come back and join that lineup and suddenly Mike Trout's going to have better protection sitting in back of him?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to agree with Mike here. So in the 6 years since leaving Arizona, he's top 10 steals just twice while hitting 3 consecutive 30 home run seasons. But in the 8 years prior to his 3 straight 30 home run seasons, he topped 30 homers once and had 5 double-digit steal seasons, all of which were 18 or more. So he swapped speed for power. But that also means that his strikeout rate has gone up. In the last 4 years, it's gone from 25.6% to 28.7% last year. So he's swinging and missing a lot more. If he doesn't get hot in the second half, he's not going to have the power. Also, by the way, the Angels rank in the bottom third of steals attempts per game, and that's not a fluke. It's their manager, Brad Ausmus, because when he was in Detroit, they were always towards the bottom, and the Angels were in the middle of the pack. So Brad Ausmus doesn't like to steal. He's going to be batting as protection for Ohtani and Trout. He's not going to have a chance to steal, and he's coming off a turf toe, which you can re-aggravate fairly quickly, and so they're not going to want him taking a shot with that. So I'm going no because he's not going to provide steals, and the power is just going to be iffy.
All right. Well, between the Pyrite and that assessment right there, guess who's sitting at 5 fires right now? In flames. There he is. Matt Sells, super hot. Let's see if anybody can dominate you on that. James Grande, Justin Upton, yay or nay?
I mean, Matt, do you think it's a coincidence that the home runs have risen since he's gone to Los Angeles? Because last year, the Los Angeles Anaheim ballpark ranked 5th in home runs, above Coors. We've talked about this before. This season, second most home runs hit reside in Los Angeles, only behind Miller Park. So I don't think it's a coincidence at all that suddenly the home runs have risen. And obviously, yes, he's traded power for speed, or speed for power. But the power is because he's playing in a minor league ballpark with 30 home run plus upside. He's shown it in back-to-back years. So I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I do think Justin Upton can be a very viable asset for the second half because, like you mentioned, Mike, he's streaky. What happens if he's streaky for the whole second half? Then we're talking about something completely different. So I am on the Justin Upton side. I've already stashed him in a league, and I think he can be a game changer, especially if we get a streaky Justin Upton playing in a minor league ballpark. He can give us a lot of home runs in the second half.
I don't necessarily know if it's a minor league ballpark. When they did lower the wall there over in right field to help out Shohei Ohtani look a little bit better, that helped all the left-handed bats. Justin Upton, though, where is he, batting from the left or the right side?
Right side.
Oh, Steve Pimentel, welcome to the discussion here. Justin Upton, it sounds like, just immediately right there. I'm going to say it's a nay from you, isn't it?
No. I think I'm more bullish, certainly than Matt was. I think we all agree the steals probably aren't going to be there. I mean, I think probably for the rest of the year, which isn't nothing, but isn't anything to write home about. But he does have a 10% career walk rate. And so in an OBP league, he's a no-brainer. And even if we pencil him in for a 260 average and a 30 home run pace, which it would be average for him. And as James said, he could definitely get hot and do better than that. But who are the pickups so far this year? We've gone nuts for every prospect that's gotten called up. Who's on a 260, 30 home run pace right now? I mean, maybe Austin Riley. I know he certainly was when he first got called up, but that's money in the bank that I don't think we should just, treat as if it's nothing. I mean, yeah, I'm not throwing my entire fab at him, and I'm probably not going to make a huge trade for him, but I don't see where the downside is. I mean, he's 31 years old, and we know what he is in that ballpark. It's not a coincidence the 2 highest home run to fly ball rates of his career have been in that ballpark. So, he's not an MVP candidate, but it's not nothing either.
James Grande, you're the other bullish one on Justin Upton here. Fab bidding right now. Well, you've stashed him in one league. Is he going to be the best thing that's going to come up on your fab wire, on your waiver wire over the next couple of months?
The best thing, I mean, potentially, tell me off the top of your head, there's another guy that can hit you 20 home runs in a half of a season.
Don't turn this around on me, dude.
No,
ask the dude next to ask Mike Alexander. Go ahead, ask Mike.
The question.
Yordan Alvarez.
Okay, one guy. So then if we put Upton second, then is he still not worth 15% of your budget?
15%? Listen, I definitely give 15% of my budget for that. Sells, is there another prospect? You already got Jordan Alvarez by Mike Alexander here. Matt, is there somebody coming up lurking in the minors that you would rather be able to save some fab money on, or would you spend it on Justin Upton?
It's mostly arms that are about to come up. So, in terms of a bat, yeah, but the question was, is he a game changer? And power is everywhere. Steals aren't, there's no steals to be had. And the premise is he steals 15 bags, but he doesn't. He hits 30 home runs, okay, but he's got a half a season. That's 15 homers. Austin Riley's already come close. Vlad Jr.'s already come close. Who knows what Jordan Alvarez can do? So, and if he gets injured again because he tries to steal and aggravates a turf toe.
All right, so I got 2 yeses and 2 nos. Matt Sells still sitting there, nice, all inflamed. Steve Pimentel, I give you 1 for going alongside Justin Upton there. It puts you at 4 right now. Grande, I'm giving you 2 for this one here. Not only for the good points that you made about the ballpark, but for that pose, like you should be in a
Jordan shrug.
sitcom. Let me see that again. You should be in a sitcom.
That was the
put the
NBA
hands up
shrug. Higher
so we can see. There you go. Mike, I'll give you 1 for that one there. But I'm a Justin Upton fan, so I mean, deck was stacked against you right from the start. Sorry, dude. But I give you 1, so you're at 3 right now. So Sells in the lead with 5. Pimentel and Grande both sitting at 4. Mike's sitting at 3 right now. Well, here we go. This is for all the marbles, guys. You ready? I'm going to put you all back to 0 right now. You're all frozen. Enough that you're all at 0, because it all comes down to this last question here. And that's what's going to decide who's going to win for me. I'm unfreezing the panel. Are you guys ready? We're going to some fantasy football talk right now. Here's the situation. PPR scoring. Okay, where did it start? Where did it become a big popular thing? Because running backs like LaDainian Tomlinson, Terrell Davis, and Sean Alexander were like the first 3 picks in fantasy drafts, and they were beyond game changers. They own the weeks for you. They would single-handedly beat you senseless if you were playing against them, and you just couldn't even compete. PPR scoring turned into, well, let's try and balance out from the running backs and the wide receivers here. Well, now here we are with a bunch of multi-back situations. Everything's a shared backfield for the most part, and you're in a pass-heavy NFL. Is there really a need for PPR scoring right now, or does it level the playing field more to go to standard? I'm going to say because you were still on fire there, Sells, I'm going to give you first crack at this.
Okay, so I'm going to go with no, PPR does not need to exist anymore. Why are we double counting points for what guys are supposed to do anyway? The only way they get yards and scores, which is what helps their NFL teams win, is by catching the ball. Unless they're a running back, then they carry the ball, which you get credit for in the first place. We don't give baseball players points per at bat. We give them points for what they do with those chances. So if you're good enough at fantasy football and you research enough, you will get the guys that get the most chances on their team to post the most yards, score the most touchdowns. And I don't see why you should. What is the benefit of having a running back who catches 10 passes and puts up 30 yards rushing or 30 yards receiving, but doesn't score any touchdowns for their team? The only thing they did to help their team was 30 yards, but somehow that turns into 14-point day for you? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure Chris Thompson would hate to hear you say something like that, Matthew. Steve, talk to me. PPR, yay or nay? Is it just unnecessary now?
Yeah, I can't make the argument that it's necessary. I might argue that it's not a problem, but I can't advocate for any format that makes TJ Yeldon a useful player. I mean, is really what it boils down to. And to Matt's point, like, a reception is the only thing in any fantasy game that doesn't have real value, but it has fantasy value. Like, you don't get a point per dribble in the NBA or the WNBA. So it doesn't make sense that a reception for 0 yards that gets back to the line of scrimmage should not be worth the same as a 10-yard rush. That's just there's no logic that supports that.
Mike Alexander, are we overvaluing the wide receivers right now? Is this an unbalanced scoring system where it just makes sense to go heavy on wide receivers now because that's who's getting all the points?
come on, guys. Standard scoring. What do you want to go back to scoring just touchdowns? I mean, we like scoring. Fantasy is supposed to be fun. Is PPR maybe a little bit rewarding some players on the extremes too heavily? Yes. My personal preference, I like points per receiving first down. That gets a little bit more complicated, but you can handle it. You're playing fantasy football. You know, and the other thing that you're not mentioning is running backs benefit from PPRs as well that are workhorses, the guys who stay in the game and are 3-down backs. So it's making guys like, you know, Todd Gurley when he's healthy, a workhorse back, the Christian McCaffreys who are getting, you know, receiving touchdowns as well as rushing touchdowns. There is value to those guys. So, you know, I don't think we should be eliminating scoring. Tweak it to where your league is comfortable. Like I said, you know, the point per first down, I think is a good compromise. It'll keep the PPR crowd happy. The people who don't like, you know, the satellite backs to you know, beat them in a week where it was a blowout, it'll keep them happy as well. So it's a nice medium for me.
All right, well, James, let me ask you, because you seem pretty enthused about not going back to standard, but are we just going to do that? Is that how we fix this? We just keep adding different ways to score points for everybody? Do we turn our beautiful, wonderful head-to-head NFL fantasy football season into a 12-by-12 linear weights, you know, fantasy baseball action thing here? I mean, points for first downs, are we really going to start awarding that? How do we fix this?
I mean, I don't know if it needs to be fixed. I mean, Mike said it. Fantasy's realistically, everyone's playing fantasy football to have fun. Yes, they're playing it to obviously have bragging rights and win money, but like, who wants to win 60 to 58 every week? I mean, if you do want to, you know, eliminate PPR, then maybe you should put stipulations in your league, you know, with yard markers or touchdown, like standard leagues really should be anyway. You eliminate PPR. I can't actually fathom. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be scoring 58 points in a week and winning. That's brutal. That's brutal.
So you would rather be in 157 to 148, bing, 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 back and forth thing than a hard-nosed grinding out 52 to 48 win.
No question about it.
How about everybody else here, Matt?
I'd rather put in the time and effort to research the guys that are actually getting the looks from people and getting yards and scores. Anybody can find a guy with hands on a football field that catches a football and gets you 10 points a week, but really only puts up 40 yards. That does no good in actual football. That makes no sense in fantasy football. Like, and by the way, if we're talking about benefiting certain players over others, the top 15 running backs and wide receivers are basically the same between standard and PPR. So it's making no difference in the top end. It makes a heap ton of difference in the guys that will finish the year with 500 receiving yards and no touchdowns, but somehow put up more points than the guy that got 400 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. That makes no sense.
Mike, you're as animated as I've ever seen you. You went like that.
I'm passionate about fantasy scoring, Howard. Yeah, I disagree with that, Matt. It's going to be consistent for the most part, except the extremes. Like I said, you know, you get a few guys that do that. But even the Julian Edelmans of the world these days, they still are getting yards and touchdowns. There are very, very few examples that are going to be a problem in your league. And, you know, the 10-point floor you're mentioning is fine in a standard league. But when you're in a PPR league, that 10-point floor is nothing now. All of those top receivers and the workhorse backs have bumped up as well for their receptions. So it's a relative score. And I think your argument is flawed there.
So we're just bumping up scoring? Then who
doesn't like scoring? I love scoring. Let's add more
actual value to the scoring, though. I don't want just
let's score celebrations.
There's a guy that won in our chat room 1,000 to 900 this season because he has some insane scoring system.
I would love that,
but it doesn't make any sense.
As long as we're handing out
doesn't make any sense.
Oh, go ahead, Steve. As long as we're handing out what?
As long as we're handing out points to everyone left and right, why even have fantasy playoffs? Let's go straight to participation trophies. It's what it sounds like
field.
You guys
as long
want.
as it's an even field. And I agree with you. Your previous
standards
point.
an even field also.
I agree with your previous point that it should be correlated to actual on the field production, things that matter. So that's why I brought up first downs. First downs are an important part of a football game. Touchdowns, obviously, things like that. So you can't just go crazy, but it is good to be relative.
And not everyone's catching passes. There's still a place in the game for Jordan Howard. There should be a place in the game for him in fantasy as well.
There's really no place for Jordan Howard in reality or fantasy right now.
Yeah,
Man,
I don't know.
Steve, I was hoping to give this one to you, but no, sirree. Not on the Jordan Howard front there. Listen, I love all these answers here. Some good stuff all around. But I'm going to side here with Matt Sells in this argument here. Why don't we just keep giving points out for everything, right? This dude stepped onto the field. Oh, all right. How about a point per snap? Can we go points per snap here? I'd like to finish out my fantasy league with a championship of 2,478,362 to 7. That's how I wanted to look on.
Availability is an ability.
What's that?
Availability is an ability.
Availability is an ability. Very well said. I wish I've already given it to Matt Sells. I'm sorry I can't help you there, Mike. But that was a good one at the end. James Grande, any final thoughts here from you?
I'm just happy to be here.
You're frozen. That's it. I don't even know where to go with that one. All right. Unfrozen. The winner of today's show, Matt Sells. Congratulations, Matt. Very well done. Good points made by all of my panelists here today. Very good points, pro and con, on a number of our arguments there. That's going to do it for us here at Table That Discussion. Hey, as always, if you guys have topics you want to hear the panelists debate, by all means, send it to us here. You can email me, howard@fantasyalarm.com, with Table That Discussion in the subject line, or you can tweet us at Fantasy Alarm and at RotoBuzzGuy and ask your question there, and we'll put it to the panelists next. Anybody else have some final thoughts here? Steve Pimentel.
I don't care what anyone says. Cardi B is awesome.
Matt Sells, final thought.
I like my walk-up song too.
Mike Alexander.
Go Blues.
Oh, wow. You know what? You just got a fire right there. Boom. Go Blues. James Grande, final thought.
I should have said, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah. You can take that. You can take the Marshawn Lynch attitude there. See what that gets you. You're frozen again. And that's how we're going to end the show right there. Thanks for tuning in to Table That Discussion. I'm Howard Bender. This has been Fantasy Alarm TV, and we'll catch you next time.